What is up, guys, and welcome to episode 16 of the Dad's Life podcast. I'm your host, Sean Flack 2.0, and in today's show, we're going to be talking about time, and not necessarily like time of day or anything like that, but how fast time flies. So, pretty interesting topic. A couple things happened to me this week that kind of made me want to talk about this topic. So before we get into it, just a couple shout outs. Again, there's been a lot more traffic over at the Sean Flack 2.0 or SeanFlack.com website. So I want to thank everybody that's going over there and checking out the blog. Of course, you could go there for web access to this podcast, the two other projects I'm working on, and including the blog. So again, thank you, everybody. Just some notable shout outs. To me, it's so amazing. Because, there's people from like Dublin, Ireland that are, visiting. Some folks from Iowa, Maine, Arizona, Texas, of course, here in California, and all of our friends north of the border in Canada, a bunch of different regions up there. People are checking it out. So, again, I want to say, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for taking your time to listen to this podcast, and let's just get right into it. So, this past week, I guess the first thing I have to do is apologize because this past week, hashtag dad life has been beating me up a little bit. Having to do the regular 9 to 5, a little bit stressful over there. And then, the kids have been sick. So, that's kind of like the life of, the dad. So one of the things is, my teen, and if you listen to any of the previous episodes, my son's diagnosed with ADHD. But this year, 8th grade, next year he's going into the 9th grade. And I kind of had to take a step back and kind of look like how fast that time went. I'm going to have a high schooler here, within the year, a couple months or whatever it is, like maybe 3-4 months or when in August, because their school starts in August. So I came to the realization he's a little bit of a handful right now, but we sat down and we had this discussion about how much time he has left at home, and come to realize that he has less time at home than he did. And I guess what I mean, and I don't know how you guys feel about it out there, but if he's still going to continue to be a handful and doesn't want to listen and follow instructions and rules, when you're 18, you want to act like a man and you want to make decisions like you're a man. Well, 2 grown men can't live in this house, and I'm not going anywhere. So, nothing malicious, like, nothing like, threats or anything like that, but just having a really honest to goodness father-son talk about time and about, the next 4 years in high school are going to go by really fast for me and for him. And just the realization of that, like, the next 4 years are just going to go by fast. So that I kind of sat back and had to think about and go into some self-reflection mode and wanted to know where all the time went. When I first got to my job, I've been at my job for, I guess, my 13th year. He was 2 years old. And, obviously I've been here for so long and watching him grow up, and then, running into coworkers I haven't seen in a while. They're like, how's the boy? And I show them pictures, and they're like, oh my God, where has the time went? Where has the time gone? And, again, I had to reflect, and I had to reflect on the time that we've had, and then, of course, realize that there isn't that much time left. And, maybe it's a mortality thing. Maybe it's I'm watching my oldest get older, but still, I have 2 little ones at home. So, I guess it's a little hard to balance. Like, okay, I want to make sure I'm not missing any time with the kids. And even though my teenager's a handful right now, I want to make sure I'm not missing any time with him. And even if it's having to sit down and have long, lengthy conversations about, why decisions that were made, weren't the best decision, or, having to sit and have a disciplinarian talk with him, or, trying to give him advice or whatever over something that's, I don't know. I mean, something, I had to remind him, that his time as being a child, like an innocent kid, is over for the most part, and that he's going to have to step up and realize that he needs to be more responsible. He's getting toward that age where he may be driving within the next year, all the responsibilities that come with that, and that if he can't make basic, I guess I would have to say common sense decisions, and he's very impulsive with that, how can we trust him behind the wheel? Or, if he can't listen and follow instructions, how can we expect him to hold a job? And really trying to put or, hit home the importance of what we're saying and why we're saying it and how it's going to practically practically affect him in the practical world and not in, his kid's teenage world. So, that being the struggle, then I have to try to find the balance of, well, I don't want, his formidable years or whatever to be a constant me and the wife, just talking them down. Like, look, you got to do this, and this. I want there to be memories in there that are like, hey, this time was fun, and this time was fun, and that time was fun. But then I come to the realization that he doesn't have that much more time left where he's going to want to hang out with good old dad. But at the same time, I got to be dad. I got to discipline him. I can't let him get away with things he's thinking he's getting away with. So, it's kind of hard. And again, as I reflect on it, even as I talk about this topic, it's, a hard balancing act. And to realize that about your children also brought me into perspective, mortality wise. When I had him, my big number was 42. If I could get to 42, that means he'll be 18 years old. And, I would have done what my dad obligations were to make sure he got to the adult age, and hopefully in a, positive manner. So the magic number was 42. And as I get closer and closer to this number, I'm like, man, where are these years going? I'm getting closer and closer to 42. And then, of course, now, with the family, married, 2 smaller kids, there's not that much time anymore. I'm coming to that realization, I don't know if this is midlife crisis or whatever, but there's, I'm realizing I don't have much time left, and much time might be 20 years or 30 years or whatever, but, if I go 30 years, I'll be 67. I was like, oh, okay, man, that's half a lifetime right there. So half my life is already over. And, with the small kids and things like that, health, fitness, mental health, all that stuff comes into play, because I at least, the number was 42. Now the new number is 55. I got to make it to 55, able-bodied, healthy, sound of mind, because I want to make sure that I have the same standard for the little ones as I had for the bigger one. So now I'm coming into realization, time is getting short. And, then I start thinking about, planning for death. And as a dad and, as a, provider, single provider, you never want to leave your family or your kids or whatever with a burden. At least I don't. So you got to start thinking about that. And then, of course, thinking about your mortality is just, it's something you have to do. It's something you have to prepare for, because it's eventually going to come. But again, now it's serious business. Now, I want to make sure that if something was to happen to me, that the wife and kids aren't burdened with a lot of financial debt, or, they're already going to be grieving. I don't want them to, I want them to celebrate me, but time is, again, a resource we can't replenish. Kind of going back to one of our Practical Pivot episodes, quoting Coach Red Pill, that time is a resource you cannot replenish. So make sure, you're selling your time or you're using your time wisely. And, as I'm getting older and older, it's man, that's real truth. And especially if I want to go the distance, if I want to make it to 67, if I want to make it to see grandkids and things like that, healthily, is that even a word? I need to start thinking about, being more healthy. I need to start thinking about taking more mental stress days, and making sure that I'm okay. And, obviously, this kind of goes with moms and dads, just parents in general, that, once you have kids, the time starts flying. And, where at work, you could work as much overtime as you want. And as I was going through, like, my little training process, one of the guys told me, he was like, when you have kids at home, you come in here, you work your week, you work your work week, your 40-hour work week, and you go home. And you go spend time with them. He was like, because when I came through, as soon as I got the job, nailed it down, got through probation, I started doing all the overtime for years. And he said, all the kids, they got all the shoes and the presents and Christmas, birthdays, vacations, all that stuff. And they got everything they wanted. But when it came time for me to stop working the overtime and I wanted to start spending more time with my kids, they're already too old for me. They didn't want to hang out with me anymore. So, he said, and this is why I don't try to work as much overtime. But, obviously, if we want to get things, and then I have to make that sacrifice. But, time is something you don't get back. So, he just said, spend time with your kids. And I've always said this, the time with your kids when they're little is not a memory for them. It's a memory for you. They still want to be around you. They still, I love it when I get home. My son, he recognizes me right away and he wants to run up and be like, Dad, and like hug me. You don't get that back. You don't get that at 12. You get that at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they start getting independent. You're like, oh man, what happened? Now it's, instead of a hug and a kiss, you get a high five, or a smile or a look. And so, if you don't use your time wisely, it's going to get away from you. And so, in this topic of the dad's life topic is, my advice to you as far as being a parent, spend as much time as you can with your kids. You could make money for as long as you're alive, but you can never, ever, ever get back any of those memories that you would lose. Okay, I need to do this and I need to do that. You have to find that healthy balance between working and living. And you should never, live to work, or however that thing goes, where all you're doing is just going to work, and you're thinking, okay, I have this big goal. I want to buy this house, or, I want to get this car. If you have little ones, you have, your wife at home, or like you said, again, if all the moms out there that are out there busting their ass, if you're the breadwinner, you got your husband at home, and, you got the kids at home. You want to make sure you find that balance to make time for your spouse, your significant other, and your children, regardless, even if that means pushing back a goal a year or two. Because that year or two that you spent trying to get that goal, when you finally get there and the family's all nice, they got the brand new car, the brand new house, but by that time 3 years goes by and you spent all this time working, you don't get those 3 years back with your family. So it's very important to find that balance, and that's part of what I do with this podcast. I want to make sure that I find that balance between doing something that I love. I love, recording these episodes. I love, reaching out, talking to you guys, interacting with you guys on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, that to me is so exciting. That's part of my little hobby, and then of course that kind of rounds me off. That keeps me grounded. I work, I spend time with the family, I hang out with you guys, via social media. We exchange ideas, read each other's blogs, or listen to each other's podcasts. And, I still get that different interaction there, and it balances me out. Of course, going out with friends and, going, taking walks and things like that. I don't want to say go to the gym, because I don't currently right now. But, part of what I do here is to help balance me out, because I want to make sure that, I don't get too burnt out with what I'm doing at work, and that, the family gets what they need. And, but with everything you want to get done, your time is not something you'll ever get back. So again, don't waste it. And this goes for so many different things in life, bad relationships. Why are you wasting your time there? You could, for all the time that you spent being in a bad relationship or abusive, mentally, physically, whatever, why would you do that? Not only spouses, but friends that are toxic and things like that. Why would you sit there and hang around that negativity and waste that time? Because you'll never get that time back. So like relationships, with your kids and your family, one of the things I always try to tell, my son is like, one day I'm not going to be here. So appreciate me now, ask me the questions now, talk to me now. Don't sit here and say, oh, well, I wish I could talk to my dad. When he was alive, when I'm alive, you could talk to me now, and as far as the kids go, like they don't understand that, which is fine. But, that's just the whole thing about time. Like, you don't ever have enough of it to really get the things that you do that you really want, or, the goals that you're going for. It's like, I don't have enough hours in the day to sleep and get all this stuff done. But remember the time is fleeting and it will never get it back. So please, dads out there, I know we're out here hustling. We're trying to provide for our families and try to get the better life for our kids and our family. But make sure you take time out for them, to be with them, to be present, put the phone down, turn the TV off, pull out the board games, ask the questions of the kids, take the wife out to dinner, turn the phone off, be 100% disconnected and connect in the present and really appreciate the here and now. Because once, it goes, you're not going to get it back. So anyway, so that was basically my whole thing on time. It's fleeting, use your time wisely, love the people that are taking care of you now, appreciate them now. Don't, tell your kids, tell your wife, tell your family, tell your mom, dad, sister, aunt, cousin, whoever it is, that you love them. And maybe you guys don't talk as much as you want to or whatever, because you just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Anyway, that's the end of the topic. You guys got any questions, comments, or emotional outbursts, or any topics you guys want to talk about, you can head over to the Anchor app. If you don't have Anchor, or you're listening this through Apple or Google or whatever, you can send me a voicemail or a voice message through the Anchor app if you go ahead and use, download the Anchor app. Obviously, you guys can find me on Twitter. That's at Sean Flack. As I always say, head over to SeanFlack.com for complete web access to this show, all the previous episodes, and all the other projects, such as the Sean Flack 2.0 YouTube page, the Practical Pivot YouTube show, which you're going to be seeing some edits to and maybe some changes to here in the near future. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's talk about being parents. Let's talk about using our time wisely. Let's, share our best practices and, do what we can for our families. So that's basically it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Again, this is episode 16. Currently not titled as anything, but definitely about time and about how we don't have enough of it. Anyway, this is Sean Flack 2.0 signing off. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time out this week. Hope you guys are having a good week so far, or a good weekend, because I am recording this on a Friday night. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.